Hey there, it's David Gordon from TheaterMania here with Colman Domingo, the great Colman Domingo, one of my favorite actors and writers, star of Passing Strange and Scottsboro Boys and If Beale Street Can Talk and Fear of the Walking Dead, and writer of plays like Dot and Wild But Happy. Thank you for talking to me. How are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay under the circumstances. You know, the world is burning, but I think when there's burning in the streets, you know that there's change that's going to come.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel. I feel like there's a history of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to set it all aflame and turn it all over in order for things to repair itself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You were in recent years, you've been working on a piece about Nat King Cole, a theater piece called Nat King Cole, and you wrote an op-ed for a publication called Deadline, where you're connecting the situation with George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, with what is going on with, or what had gone on in Nat King Cole's life. And I'd love you to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I think, when I was sitting down to write this op-ed, which was just, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
2 days ago. I had the news going on in the background, and I was just centering myself in this moment. And immediately I went to a historical moment that I had been, really investigating, which was, the iconography of Nat King Cole and what he means to America, what he means to music, what he means to the systems, and how in the system in the 1950s, he was very much a man who had exceptional grace. And when Patricia McGregor and I were investigating Nat King Cole as we were trying to write a musical about him, I became increasingly frustrated because I thought, like, there's no way that this guy can constantly have that much grace. Mm-hmm. And everyone said it, every interview, you name it, the most graceful, dignified man in the world. Until I stumbled on an article in 1958 in Ebony magazine, where he famously wrote that Madison Avenue is afraid of the dark in relation to his show being it was a critical success, but it wasn't a financial success.
Right.
He and NBC invested in the show. It ran for a year, and they were hemorrhaging money, but they knew it had to exist. And I saw in that article that finally, when his point of view and his intelligence about the system that he was in, I actually saw his rage. And so I thought, oh, he has that rage as well. Nat King Cole has it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to we turned the musical in on itself and really made it a dark night of the soul, where he has to make some choices, whether to bow out gracefully or to burn it all down. And I related to that because I thought, as an artist, that Patricia as well as an artist, that we know what we carry. We know what rooms we're in. We know what the system is, and we know what's required of us. And I think a lot of times is to look at that adversity with grace.
Yeah.
So I was exploring that, and then I saw myself right in this moment when, our president of the United States was issuing the Insurrection Act, and I think my jaw hit the table as I'm typing this, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you're going to reach back to an act from 1807 to handle the insurrection of slaves. I thought, this is where we are, and this is our reality, and this is the American problem. And so it really just brought it all together for this Deadline op-ed, where I thought, this is where we are, and it's history, and I wanted to link it to history, that it's repeating itself, and it's time, and we're trying to fix the ills of this country, which is at the center, starts in 1619 with the first survival of slaves.
Right. Yeah. I want to talk to you about your history and your career. Like, what have you experienced have you experienced similar things to what Nat King Cole
experienced? Of course, absolutely. I'd be challenged to ask any African American person of color, women as well, I think, have they experienced this as well? And everyone would say yes. And it's not even in the large ways, it's the small ways as well. Mm-hmm. It's when you go into rooms and you understand. I would go from rehearsal to rehearsal in New York, and I would notice that it was a whole team of, white men. Yeah. And then I was finding any women, they were the stage managers, or they had, other positions. But when it came down to board members, when it came down to producers,
right.
And I'm like, it's systemic. And I think the person of color always sees that. You always see, and you understand that you're always trying to work within a system. And what we're saying, I think what people are saying now is that the system is problematic. It's problematic for everyone.
Yeah.
If it's problematic for the the Black people, it's actually, you're not winning either, because
Right.
no one's actually benefiting from this. Well, certain people were
Yeah.
for a long time.
Well, I was thinking, I've been thinking a lot this week about, I don't know how often or how on the receiving end you are of all of these solidarity statements from all of the different nonprofit theaters in New York. And I'm on email streams for basically all of them. And I'm just looking at them, okay, we stand in solidarity, but you haven't produced a show by a person of color on Broadway ever. We stand in solidarity, you relegate theater by people of color to your smallest stages every year. And I'm just thinking to myself how hollow and empty these statements are, and just hoping that all of these.
Also, with the people of color and people, well-meaning people, we see it. We
Right.
see that they're empty, because I've even gotten calls to action from people who are like, oh, we stand in solidarity, but you're like, but your actions show differently.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna, so I guess now it's I think what people are calling on it now is like, if you're going to stand in solidarity, truly stand in solidarity, and let that. And now we're going to now try to really help you with your systems of doing that work, and we're not going to let up.
Yeah. What can, I remember, and I don't know how relevant it is to this conversation, but we spoke last February 2019, when you were putting together Lights Out, the Nat King Cole project. And you had mentioned that even though you had worked at some of the major New York City theaters and had produced very successful plays with them, they weren't really coming to you for new material.
Nope. Which is wild. It's wild to me. And they know who they are.
Yeah.
Theaters that I've given them hit shows, I showed up, they were successful, and then you feel expendable at times. That's actually just the word you feel.
Yeah.
I think you do feel like, you're like, wow, I have to beg you to read my new material. I have to beg you when I have B-roll of it. I have to beg you. And I don't know what that's about. And you can't take it any other way but believing that you were used and let go of. But I try not to, even at the beginning, during that time, I tried not to think of it as a person of color thing. I thought it was actually just, this is the way you treat artists. Mm-hmm. This seems to be your mandate, and which is why if people. I think in that article we talked about, I haven't been on stage in New York in a very long time. Yeah. I've been working in other mediums, but it's like, nobody's called. Broadway doesn't call me at all for anything. Yeah. Never. And here I am. I have a Tony nomination. I have an Olivia. I couldn't have any more. I'm on a hit television series. You name it. I'm not bitter about any of it because I go where the love is. But the receipts show that there's certain people that fit a narrative that they would like to continue to promote or use, and then other people are expendable unless you've got something they want. Because now that I've become, I have a platform on these other mediums, it's very interesting that some theaters will reach out. I'm not saying the theaters that I'm a part of. I'm a part of one that I'm on the board and everything, and I know that I'm a part of their mission. But there has been other theaters that I've never been on their stage. I've never had my work produced, and yet still they're asking me for things that I have. An access or donation or something. You're like, wait a minute, you haven't supported me 1 ounce. Right. Yeah. It's just, it's incredible. And there's a lot of gall to it.
What are some of the things that you would hope that, not for nothing, all of the artistic directors whose theaters have shut down now are hoping, well, when COVID shut everything down, it was a way to reassess and rework what theater would look like going forward. What are you hoping that these theaters take from everything that's going on now to rebuild when?
I think that I hope that the theaters listen. I hope the artistic directors listen. Mm-hmm. I think it's time to do some real deep soul searching and really look around the rooms that you're saying you're creating and being a part of change. And then you look around, it's nothing but white people on your staff, right, in every department. You're like, so that's and also I'm always talking about who's making the decisions. Yeah, your artistic teams. You're like, I know that as a director, I'm always handed a list of designers, and I have to say, hey, can we look at this? I need some people of color here. Yeah. If you're actually going to do this right and do this well, and I'm leading a room, we have to investigate that. So I think that they have to really systemically look at. They have to take inventory and actually look at, their board members, their artistic staff, their crews, their designers, you name it, and actually and run the numbers. They have to run the numbers and then do some reckoning, and then wonder why people are trying to call them out and call them on it and make them accountable.
Yeah.
And also, I think there needs to be things that need to be instituted in terms of like how we do. I think there's some diversity training that needs to happen. I think we're required to bring people together. But
Yeah.
people are coming in from like somebody who came from whatever, Texas, probably never worked with Black people or worked with gay people or whatever. We have to actually do some, like we do crisis management. We do, whether it's like, sexual harassment.
Yeah.
I think that there's got to be something in place, because I think this is actually, it should have always been in place, because actually this is the system that America is, and it's a struggle with that. And so now hopefully that people take that seriously, that it has to be a mandate.
And I think some of these theaters would actually benefit from it. I think
all of the theaters benefit from it. Every single one of them. Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like you can count the Black artistic directors on a finger.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people are like, oh, a major, and I'm talking about major institutions. I'm talking about the big ones, and I'm talking about when it comes to, theater owners as well, all of them. And so they have to practice what they preach. It's like if they want to be a part of it and a part of the change, they really have to help usher this stuff in and actually be willing to do the work. Like there's rare when you have a Passing Strange on Broadway. To get a Passing Strange to Broadway, you really need people who are willing, it seems like, to take a risk, but it's always taking a risk on our material when we've been proven to be successful. Yeah. But for one Passing Strange, there's countless other Dear Evan Hansons, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so you just need people to believe in it, theater owners, producers, financiers, you name it.
Yeah, I want to talk about, I feel like we were talking before we got started with this, that two shows that you had been in, specifically Passing Strange and the Scottsboro Boys, were sort of prescient. Scottsboro Boys certainly was prescient of, not even prescient, it was relevant then too. What does that mean to you to be a part of projects like that? I know you've said to me in the past that it's sort of artivism. You get involved with the productions that you can make art and also be an activist for.
Yeah, I think that I guess it's just what I've been drawn to. And I feel like it's like, I don't even think that I've been conscious of it, but I know that I've always wanted to be useful with the work that I did. And I'm very conscious of what I put out into the world. So I guess that makes sense. But being a part of things like Scottsboro Boys or Passing Strange, both of these productions started out very small. Yeah. They were just, we're going to do it to do it. And you're paid a not so great wage off Broadway to do it, or, a couple bucks and, and pass it with Passing Strange as well. But we're doing it because we believe in what we're trying to say. You got people invested in this work, and it becomes a mission for you. That's what Passing Strange was, and Scottsboro Boys. And I think that I was, to less of an extent, I was trying to make Donna Summer sort of a very female empowered, part of my manifesto as well. So I think that anything that I'm a part of, it just means I really want to get in bed with something that I know is going to make a difference and have an impact. And then it's just about, like with Lights Out, Nat King Cole, we have Broadway dreams for that. Yeah. And also you have to find, not only just find the money, find the right money, the people who are really going to invest and believe that it's a mission and willing to take, whether it's a loss or a huge gain, but it's taking a leap of faith and putting your money where your mouth is. Yeah,
I feel like Dot was the same way, a play about.
Dot was the same way. And Dot, I've had a great relationship, and still do, with the Vineyard Theater that I think has truly been doing the work. We're actually announcing, I believe, today or tomorrow, and maybe I'll just give you this. It's a scoop. Why not? I mean, as we're saying, we're announcing, this has been in the works for about a year, and we actually, just before the pandemic, we just settled in on our final interviews of finding a way to support. I established the Colman Domingo Award, which is an award given to specifically an African-American multi-hyphenate man in the theater. And it's being given today or tomorrow. I'll let the Vineyard's press announcement announce it, but it's an award. It's a financial award. It's mentorship. It's support, workshops, you name it, with the Vineyard Theater. And so I know already, when they honored me last year at their gala, I wanted to give something back, and I wanted to make it specific. And they agreed that, I said, there are no awards for an African-American man. And that's exactly what we need. And so I think a theater like the Vineyard, I said, well, you know what? We were going to put out the release, but we didn't want to feel like we were reactionary. But I'm like, it was already in process. I said, you know what? Actually, it's a great thing, because I think it's time to make sure that that the Vineyard hopefully takes a leadership position in this way and say that this is necessary.
Yeah, the Vineyard really is one of those theaters that is doing the work and has actively done the work.
Yeah.
Just in an effort to broaden its audiences and introduce its audiences to theater that they wouldn't see uptown either.
Absolutely. And I think they've always been committed in that
way.
I think that's, and also, the public theater as well. The public theater has gotten a little big, but I think at their core that they're very much interested in that as well. There are many other off-Broadway theaters and Broadway theaters that I don't think it's important to. I think it's amazing to me. There's many Broadway theaters I've never worked at or never seemed like I've ever been considered for some reason or another,
This might be an unanswerable question, or it might be a hard question to answer, but I want to leave with sort of the discussion of like, what can these theaters do to become better allies for the community so they are putting their money where their statements are, so to speak?
I think at first it means, I believe they can be better by first taking stock of their inventory and look at their practices and look how they've made things available or not available to people of color. I think even when it comes to their programming, I think that me and my colleagues always joke, but in a dark way, that they always have time for one Black show. God forbid they had two in a season.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can also truly be advocates. I mean, and really, I think it's time to listen. I think what theaters can do right now is listen, actually. I think that's the best thing they can do. I think artistic leaders and artists, I think that we should come together in roundtables and town halls and really see how we can put in actual system practices in, whether it's mandates, whether it's also actually, we put these things in financially, you name it, but actually to really do the work, not just say, because I think the statement will go away in a minute. Like next week, people will be back to their yoga classes. You know what I mean? But it would be nice if they continued and said, this is what's important to our theater. I know a theater that's absolutely doing it. And I feel like if everyone reached out, okay, I'm afraid, but they're going to call him up. Zach Berkman at People's Light and Theater Company. People's Light and Theater Company actually have these practices in place and have been doing the work. The last time I was there directing a production of Dot, it was incredible the time they took and wanted to make sure that they were engaging in this very conversation about race and what can we do and how do we have ownership of certain things. They're actually talking about it and they're doing the work. They're saying, well, we need to have more people of color here. We need to do that. We need to make things available and have access, and that extends to our audiences as well. And making sure that it reflects, it goes back and forth. And I can tell you, Zach Berkman has been leading the charge.
Colman, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.
I really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your afternoon, and thank you everybody for watching. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.